What does it mean to dream of a dead person smiling? If your dreams include a central image of somebody you know who has died, it's very easy to be taken aback. In fact, most normal people might even be shaken awake by the image of somebody they know for sure has passed away. But there they are in their dreams, full of life, possibility, and even excitement. At the back of your mind, when you're dreaming this, you know that the person looking at you and smiling and carrying on is absolutely dead. So how do you make sense of this type of dream imagery? How do you make sense of dreaming of a dead person smiling and seemingly full of life? The meaning and symbolism of a dead person smiling. It's very hard to untangle the two symbols entwined within the image of a dead person smiling. First, you have to deal with the fact that the person that you see in your dreams, who seems so alive and who seems to have the best life in front of them, because they're so full of emotions and possibilities, is already dead. I'm talking about several years dead. It's not like they just died. You know for sure they have been long gone. This is the first layer of interpretation. You're dealing with a memory. Now, you may be thinking that dreaming of a dead person who you know for sure has passed away is fairly harmless. But it isn't, because everybody you interacted with in this world has left some sort of impact on you. There's a reason why your subconscious picked that specific dead person instead of the countless of other people you've met along the years who have passed on. Why that person? But make no mistake, as you go through life in your life journey, you pick up a lot of influence from people around you. You can't help it. We're all recording devices. We're all organic journals that pick up all these memories. But some are more important than others. We hang on to some memories and let go of others. This is why it's really important to understand how your memory system works. And your subconscious is letting you know that there is some sort of change going on in how you prioritize memories and how you record certain impressions while letting go of others. This is how people get inspired. This is how people choose to remember. They look at what they're perceiving in an almost automatic way, and they prioritize that information in terms of recall and memory based on their values. So if you come across somebody who has totally different values than you but doesn't really offend you or strike you as off, chances are you'll forget that person. Now, don't get me wrong, you probably picked up a lot of signals from that person, and it's a deep level. You probably remembered some of what they said or what their influence was, but you'll be hard-pressed to easily recall their impact on you. There has to be some sort of experience or some sort of trigger for your mental data banks to dredge up information or memories regarding that individual. With other people, you pick up easily and you remember easily. Believe it or not, you're not as smart or original of a thinker as you imagine yourself to be. That's perfectly okay, because your ability to make sense and pick up on these different signals from the rest of the universe is a core part of what makes you human. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Just because this happens to you and you're aware of it doesn't mean that you're no less original than the next person. You tend to pick up patterns that you're most familiar with. You tend to remember information regarding other people as well as your impressions of them based on how neatly they fit your values. Still, if you see somebody that you know has passed away a long time ago smiling at you and interacting with you, your subconscious is, generally speaking, dealing with something from the past. The good news about dream images of a dead person. Now, before we get too deep into the interpretation of what it means to see a dead person smiling in your dreams, I just want to highlight one very important point. It is rarely the case that your night visions of a dead person smiling or interacting with a dead person actually has something to do with somebody who died. In fact, in many cases, the real subconscious meaning of your night vision has nothing to do with the specific person you're interacting with in your dream. You know that that person has died, but the meaning has nothing to do with that person. There's nothing freaky, weird, or occult about this image unless there are other symbols in your dream that would point the interpretation in that direction. For example, you're dreaming of dragons, and all of a sudden this giant image of a pentagram or the devil arises. You're surrounded by people you know are dead. Probably this kind of dream would lead to some other interpretation. It's not about those dead people per se. But generally speaking, when you see dead people in your dreams, you're not dealing with those specific individuals. Instead, your subconscious is trying to send you a message regarding past ideas, past mindsets, past perceptions, and past narratives. These are more important. The past may not be the past when it comes to dead loved ones. Of course, one of the most emotionally jarring images that you could see in a night vision is when somebody you cared about and somebody who cared for you comes back to life. In fact, these dead people interaction dreams usually present a situation where it seems that nothing has happened. It seems like a memory. You just wake up and there is that person. Maybe they're making an omelet, fixing you a sandwich, or talking to you as if they haven't passed on. They're talking to you while they're cleaning the house. Totally commonplace, totally routine, and unless you are aware or get triggered in your dream, you might even think that this was a memory from several years back. Right smack in the middle of all of this is the assumption that this person is very much still alive. But you also know full well that they're dead. The good news is that it's not a prediction, nor is this dream some sort of agonizing or emotional dissection of your relationship with that specific person. Instead, when you see the image of a dead person and just going about life in your dream, your subconscious is telling you about past mental states you have. But here's how it gets kind of tricky. Human growth, when it comes to attitude, outlook, and mindset, is usually not clear-cut. When you open a history book, historians have this way of cutting up timelines into neat little periods. Generally speaking, historians know when the Renaissance splits off from the High Middle Ages and when the Enlightenment takes place and gives way to the modern age. Well, when it comes to our personal, spiritual, psychological, and emotional evolution and personal histories, there are no hard and fast timelines. Different people have different timelines. Most people would take 2 steps forward and then 1 step backward and then some. That's how it works. People are different. There's no one single rule. People morph from one mindset to another in fits and starts. And oftentimes they jump backward depending on the circumstances they face. Sometimes you feel that you're making good progress as you mature emotionally. And then, out of nowhere, you hit a wall. Maybe your girlfriend or boyfriend leaves you. Maybe you got employed and your boss is just a big jerk. Maybe you lose your dream job. Whatever the case may be, something happens and all this progress that you think you were making goes down the toilet and you get knocked back on your heels, so you repeat the process again. But this time around, it's a smoother transition because you've seen this before. I hope you get my point. When you look at that dream imagery of a dead loved one or a dead person from the past, you're dealing with changes in your mindset. Be as clear as possible as to how you're changing. Make peace with those changes, and if you're not happy with how things are turning out in terms of how you see the world, you can change direction. You can target other values instead of assumptions and values that you automatically or seem to automatically pick up along the way. Your subconscious is trying to grab your attention regarding these changes because there may be unresolved business there. You may be looking for closure, and if you are not fully aware of these can actually hold you back. Hugging a dead person means coming to terms with a past awareness. One of the hardest things about charting one's personal path to maturity is that things are often gradual. And when you're growing up as a person on a psychological, emotional, and even spiritual level, things don't always proceed at the same pace. As I mentioned earlier, different people mature differently. Well, even within yourself, there are many different timelines. There are many different growth rates and many different growth directions. You have to allow yourself this space. Intellectually, you can understand or even map out how you've grown. There are certain things that you may have closed in your mind, and now you're open to them. In fact, you'd view them as a part of your day-to-day waking reality. This makes you feel good because you are under the impression that you've gone far and that you have turned over a new leaf. This is all great and everything, but feelings are not reality. Personal stories that you tell yourself over and over again and stories that make you feel good, they only stay in your mind. They're not real. Unless you allow them to change how you act, they are not real. Just because you think them doesn't mean they are the real deal. You don't have to believe everything that comes into your mind, no matter how good they make you feel. I hope you can see the different levels of reality here. Feeling good is one thing, but feeling good to the point that you change your behavior on a day-to-day basis and you do things repeatedly over an extended period of time are two totally different things. The former is wishful thinking, the latter is reality. Visitation dreams are very personal. One of the most common terms used to describe the experience of dreaming of a dead relative or a dead loved one is a visitation dream. The idea is that these loved ones who have long passed are visiting you somehow. They're going from one dimension of existence to another. But as I've mentioned already, this is not what your subconscious is actually trying to communicate. Instead, it's trying to shine a spotlight on how your mindset has changed compared to the past. By letting you step into your old mindset as represented by one dead person or several dead people, magically brought to life, so to speak, you have given yourself a chance to reconnect with how you used to think. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're feeling. This is not a waste of time. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. This is not a waste of time. In fact, it's a very important stage in deepening your level of self-awareness and psychic maturity. How can you tell you've gone so far when you have nothing to compare it to? Usually you just have a feeling. You just say to yourself, well, I get the impression that I have changed profoundly as a human being. But have you? Really? So you have to look at not only what you're feeling, but also what you do. If your habits today are the exact same habits as you had when you were 15 years old, I'm sorry to report, you haven't changed. Stop fooling yourself. When you experience a visitation dream, you are given this opportunity to take a cold, hard look as to who you really are in the here and now compared to a previous version of yourself. A dead person smiling means you are in a safe psychic space. As I mentioned earlier, there are many different ways your subconscious can frame dead people. This navigation of your soul can be quite traumatic indeed. After all, you know that these are dead people. They're not coming back. All you have are memories of them. In many cases, false memories can arise because you're just going by what other people said to you about them. You don't have first-hand experience regarding these people. It's perfectly okay to have these kinds of dreams. It's as if you're projecting memories into the back end of your mind and playing a script that somebody else wrote. But in reality, your subconscious is trying to get you to become aware of how past experiences, seeded or informed by a wide number of people from your past, can help you become a better person. If you are able to deconstruct false information or wishful thinking from the past that led you to act a certain way, you can also use that same process to focus on the things that you know to be true that can possibly lead you to a different personal narrative. Everybody tells stories about themselves internally. This is a part of our internal soundtrack. We keep repeating this story whether we are aware of it or not. You may not be fully conscious of it, but you best believe that you have this internal story of who you are, what you can be, what you can aspire for, what you're limited by, and where you're going. And if you change that narrative, you end up in a different place. You become a totally different person. Your subconscious is using the image of secondhand information about dead people in your past to let you know that you have this power to change your narrative. Of course, none of this would be happening if your narrative isn't running into some sort of issue. Maybe doesn't fit the current reality that you live in. Maybe doesn't fit where you want to go. Maybe your current relationships are causing some sort of internal psychic conflict that is bringing issues about your narrative to the surface. Whatever the case may be, you need to get to the bottom of it. Otherwise, this conflicted personal reality will come to a head sooner rather than later. Letting go of the past is the first step to making sense of it. I know that the previous section that I explained to you seems very conflicted and complicated and convoluted. I get it. But please understand that when you see a dead person in dream images, you are actually giving yourself an opportunity to make peace with the past. If you're able to make peace with the past and how you choose to believe in certain things or how you choose to construct certain things about your identity, you are paving the way for you to letting go of a past narrative and charting another narrative or putting together another narrative that would enable you to get to where you want to go. This is all part of you healing yourself, because at some point you're believing certain things about the past that are not helping you. Remember, there are always more than two ways to look at a set of facts. Facts are facts. They're not going to go away, but your interpretation of them can change over time. Also, your interpretation of what happened in the past can change dramatically depending on who you ask about those events. Do you see how this works? Because if you feel that there's really only one way to look at facts that make up who you are, then you will feel like you're a slave to some sort of narrative, and it might not be serving your best interest. In most cases, there's a tremendous amount of ambiguity about things that we think that happened in the past. And in reality, things are actually amorphous. They can go either way. So why not come up with a narrative based on the best case scenario so you can live a more empowered life? Give yourself permission to truly know yourself. This is a very sad section because a lot of people go about with full confidence, living their lives, thinking that they know themselves. In reality, they're hanging on to a false image of who they are. In many cases, they believe in certain lies about themselves that really set them up for consistent disappointment. If you think you keep hitting a wall or you keep running into the same problems, or it seems that you can't find the right person because no matter how hard you try, you keep attracting losers and bad people, it's because of your internal narrative. You don't really fully know yourself. You don't really understand who you are, at least as presently constituted. So you're stuck with that script, and you feel that there is really no happy ending because that script that you have, that soundtrack of your life keeps producing the same sorry results in the same disappointing and frustrating relationships. Well, you might want to take a step back and give yourself permission to truly know your narrative, truly know the facts that make it up, and realize that there are other facts. Realize that there are different ways you can spin those facts. Again, we can't make facts disappear, but we can look at them in context. We can give them a different interpretation as long as enough facts support that alternative interpretation. Reality is much deeper than you care to realize, because you're able to piece things together in such a way that you end up feeling a different way, looking at yourself a different way, and by doing so, behaving differently. And when you do that, once you reach that level, your reality starts to change, because for every action, there is going to be a reaction. Use that to your favor. Use that to your advantage. Overcome attachment. Now that I've exposed you to the answer and your power to change your internal narrative, you might be thinking, if this is true, then why aren't more people doing this? Good question. The reality is that a lot of people, whether they accept it or not, and whether they care to admit it or not, become attached to the script that they've lived their lives by for decades. That's the sad reality. So if you are a person who has convinced yourself that you are shit, you won't amount to much, you are unlovable, and you don't deserve the best life has to offer, what kind of life do you think you will be living? Now you may be thinking to yourself, that's so gloomy, sad, depressing. Who would want to live that way? Well, you'd be surprised as to how many people actually live that way, because think about it. If you have written yourself off, what happens next? That's right, you stop trying. And believe it or not, a lot of people find cold comfort in that, because they feel that they no longer have to face disappointment, criticism when they fail. Now they say to themselves, since I am useless, I don't have to try. So there's no duty, no compulsion, no responsibility. And this brings a tremendous sense of relief. But of course, this comes at a high price. You operate at a very low level of efficiency and effectiveness. But at least you don't have to try. And this develops into an almost irresistible addiction. A lot of people even make this the bedrock of their identity. They are that attached. Now you have to ask yourself, is this the kind of reality I want to live? Or do I see myself as the master of my universe? Do I see myself as somebody who is good enough to aspire, work towards, and ultimately achieve the very best in life? Of course, it's scary. Nothing is guaranteed. There are a tremendous amount of risks out there, but that's what makes life fun. At the very least, you are guaranteed some sort of adventure as you go from zero to hero. But people who are struggling with attachment issues regarding toxic identities can't let go. So you have to break those mental chains. And unfortunately, nobody can step into your life and do it for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. Now, of course, you can hire somebody who specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy and will have the necessary professional credentials to help you. But at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, you have to roll up your sleeves and do the work yourself. Your life is in the here and now and not in the past. I know I've been talking about narratives and personal soundtracks that, for the most part, are informed and infused by things that have happened in the past. But ultimately, for you to break the old script and adopt a new one, all of this has to take place in the here and now. Stop being a slave to your past. Your past failures, humiliations, and embarrassments do not have to define you. Your family history does not have to define you. You can choose to be your own person. You can declare independence from the past. Of course, this is easier said than done, especially if you are attached or addicted to a certain past narrative. But those images of dead people smiling at you are telling you that you can shape your perception of the past and ultimately break free. Don't let the smile fool you. One key interpretation of dreams involving dead people or a dead person smiling indicates self-delusion. Life is complicated. Just ask the people in our lives. Life is complicated. Also, life is suffering. We have to allow them that, because if we truly understand who we truly are, we need to give people permission to be complicated in our lives. This is especially true for people you love, because the worst thing that you can do is to somehow turn them into cartoons. Sadly, a lot of people, especially individuals dealing with past trauma, have this tendency to paint the world in simplistic colors, black or white, bully or victim, in and out, right and wrong. If it only were that easy. As you probably already know, victims can also become victimizers, who can also become bullies, who can also be oppressed. We wear many different masks. There is no one universal pecking order or hierarchy that doesn't change over time and space. It just doesn't exist. So given all this dynamism, it really would be too bad for you to reduce other people into cartoons, because when you do that, you caricature yourself. There's no healing there. You end up chasing shadows of solutions that don't exist. There's more to people than being good or evil. Why do I say that you shouldn't caricaturize people? Well, the reality is that people can't be put in neat little boxes of good and bad. There's this big danger that when you see a dead person smiling in your dreams, and this person had a profound connection with you, you end up turning that person into an emotional cartoon. On the one hand, you can say, well, this person is so kind, so good, and so pure. Only goodness flows from this person. So you allow yourself this long list of positive emotions emanating from that image of that dead person. You can also flip the script and see a person that makes you uncomfortable, and you with a broad stroke of the brush, you tell yourself, nothing good came from this person. Both strategies, if you want to call it that, are false. They lead nowhere. Stop seeing people as cartoons, because if you refuse to see them as they are, you only manage to succeed in one thing and one thing alone. You rob yourself of any real guidance. Really, you're dumbing yourself down, because people are not cartoons. People are complicated. They're like onions. There are many layers. And those layers, bad enough as it is in one particular space, changes over time. See people as they are, not as cartoons. One key danger of seeing people as cartoons is we often project our worst insecurities and instincts on these people. That's what makes them cartoons in the first place. But they bring their own reality to the table. These realities have something to tell us. They have something to teach us. So focus on those. Don't be so eager to just write everybody off or engage in some sort of projection, because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to suffer, because whatever lessons you think you're getting from that person are by definition going to be messed up.